Well, good afternoon, everyone. We're back. Welcome back. We're excited. We've been talking about this for a few months now about getting back on with politics talks on a gathering place. And for those of you who are new to a gathering place, my name is Marilyn Hemingway. I do a number of things. But one of the things that I do is a gathering place, our online show. We used to do it every Sunday and Wednesday live at 4 o'clock. And it's just really been, can we do this? Can we make this happen? People are asking us, are you going to come back on? People were also asking us, can I come on? Because I wrote a book and I want to talk about my book, or I have this new program happening and I want to make that happen also. So we decided to restart a gathering place. And it just so happens it's Black History Month. And we wanted to do every third Sunday, do a politics talk, which was one of our favorite topics. And I'm joined in politics talks with my two friends, Brandon Upson and Jamar Brown. I want to bring Brandon in very quickly. I had him in. There he is. All right. Let me go ahead and bring Brandon in and say hello. Hey, Brandon. How are you?
I'm great, Marilyn. How you doing?
I'm doing good. So tell us where you are very quickly, because I love the background. It's very colorful and everything. So tell us quickly where you are.
Yeah, I'm here on the campus of the University of South Carolina, Aiken, where the Emoja Village Foundation is hosting their fourth annual Black History Month celebration and award ceremony. It started out in the Leslie Price Center in the city of Aiken, and they've outgrown that facility, and now they got about 700 people here at the Convocation Center. They're honoring some living legends to include Mr. Bill Clyburn, who is a state representative, and dozens of others. It's an amazing celebration here. So excuse my background if you can hear that.
We hear it a little bit, but we hear you much better. So it doesn't
Okay.
matter. The background's good. We got some folks joining us. Hi, folks. Say hello. Of course, in the comments, wherever you're coming from, Facebook and others, please drop your comments in, because we want to hear from you as we talk. We just get together and we talk politics, and we try to talk national, state, local, state, national, because they are all intertwined together. I think the word that we've been hearing in recent years is intersectionality. So we can have intersectionality of the local, state, national politics, but also intersectionality of different issues facing our community, which is economics, education, government, everything you could think about. There's intersectionality. We're waiting on our friend Jamar Brown. He should be joining us any minute. But before he does, I'm going to, y'all, I got to confess. Brandon already knows this. We are using StreamYard. So if you want to use StreamYard, I highly recommend it. It is a studio system, very easy to use. But because I have not been in it for a while, I'm relearning a lot of stuff. So I did find our old introduction. We're going to run that today, but believe me, I'm working on a new introduction.
And Marilyn,
yes, go ahead,
after
Brad.
you did that promo for StreamYard, we should reach out to them about sponsoring this conversation moving forward.
Exactly. I agree with you, Brandon. StreamYard.
The gathering space.
And if you
Go
are
ahead.
listening and you want to sponsor, yes, we are looking for sponsors on a gathering place. So please reach out to us, and we'll share phone numbers and everything as we do the show. Thank you for spending 1 hour with us, and we'll be right back with you after this introduction. Hello, I'm Marilyn Hemingway, and welcome to A Gathering Place. I said, I'm stepping back because we have young voices who want to be heard, and they're moving on something.
Branding is really important to you and your business.
Even a basic type of technology, you'll learn it all.
And people are
good question. And we're back, folks. Thank you very much for joining us. And that introduction brought back some memories.
Man, we have
Yeah.
come a mighty long way.
Yes, we have. We have come a mighty long way. But all good stuff happening. I've actually definitely have to update the introduction because we've actually updated our slogan. It's no longer making a way out of no way. It is now celebrating our heritage, creating our future. So we want to update all of that. But
Nice.
these are exciting times for us. There's a lot to talk about, Brandon. Before we get into it, give us a short synopsis of what you've been up to, in general, whatever you want folks to know.
Yeah, so since the last time we had this conversation, I've been accepted into the United States Leaders Program with former President Obama. Uh, a global cohort. I was just telling somebody, it's about 300 of us around the globe. They selected 100 here in America, in the U.S., I should say. They selected 100 from the UK and 100 from Africa and Asia to go through this year. We'll be gathering in Chicago in April as a cohort to meet each other for the first time. But I thought I was giving up my political campaign management hat and passing it on to someone else until a friend of mine decided to run for the United States Senate. So I'm helping him as well. Brandon Brown, who's running against Lindsey Graham. And then, of course, our organization, the New Progressive South, is still working to help train, develop, and deploy candidates running for local office. So staying busy, and the children are still growing. I got my 9, 10, and 11-year-old, my 10-year-old Sophie is 10 going on 24, and my 11-year-old Cosette is 11 going on 42. So she thinks everyone's her child. She calls all children all day.
She has an
Very
old
much
soul.
so.
Very good, very good. First, I'm very proud of you with the Obama selection, and you answered my question already with this global organization, global entity. Did you guys ever get together? But you're going to get together this spring.
Yes, we're getting together this spring, and some of us are going to the UK to connect with our cohort there, and others are going to Africa to connect there. Um, it is really, I still don't know how in the world they selected me for this. There are the members of parliament in this, former prime ministers, um, everything from mayors to congress people here in the US, but outside the political realm there are CEOs and the chief uh, the vice president for philanthropy with Walmart. She's on here. She's my wingmate.
Okay,
Um,
very good.
yeah, and we got a little bit of everything. It's amazing. It's absolutely amazing.
Very good, very good. My sister-in-law works at Walmart corporate. I know it's
Okay.
huge, but just what
Yeah.
happens, her last name's Hemingway. When you talk, they say, "Do you happen to know she's in human resources?"
Okay.
Andrea Hemingway. They are in Arkansas. I believe
Yep.
Bentonville, Arkansas.
Yep.
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah, that's where they live now. She's in corporate human resources. I don't know her title, so
Yeah.
if you happen to remember that. We're
Yeah.
very proud of you and the work we're doing. And you may not know why you were selected, but we know why you were selected. So very good. We're very excited about that. So
Thank you.
we're waiting on Jamar, but let's go ahead and get started, Brandon.
Hmm.
And we folks put a lot of topics together to chat about. We only have an hour, so forgive us if we go through this quickly, or we'll come back to it because we do plan on visiting with you every third Sunday at 4 o'clock every month. And I just had to bring this up. Two things: the Pam Bondi testimony in Congress last week. I don't know if you want me to state my opinion. I think we may be in
Oh, go ahead. You can go.
form, in agreement on this one. I thought it was just so disrespectful, and also she was playing to, which they all play to in this administration, an audience of one, which is Donald Trump, and quite frankly, we are we have problems with this current administration, and it's all going to come out in the next hour and everything. But I thought it was disrespectful on many levels. One, because of the seat that she sit in. She is honored to sit in a seat that is the highest justice, law enforcement position in this country on behalf of the American people. Two, was disrespectful to the members of Congress, those on the committee, and other members of Congress. And three, and I have not heard this. Well, three is disrespectful, obviously, to Democrats because she handled those questions differently depending on the political party. And four, the one I have not heard of, the disrespect to Black members of Congress. And race, I don't care how much people want to disconnect race to what is going on in this country. Everything is about race in this country. So, I'm not happy about it. I'm at the point now where a lot of these folks in this administration need to be tried for treason and face the consequences. So, your thoughts, Brandon?
So I watched clips from that testimony over this last couple of days, and here's what I feel. When you are the highest law enforcement officer in the land, you have a constitutional duty to represent the best interests of the people. That is your constitutional duty. If you look at members of our government in those positions, they have to give an oath, and the oath is to serve and protect governed by the Constitution of the United States, not governed by the political partisan agenda of one political party or one man, right? And they have come before Congress and the Senate multiple times, in the House and the Senate, and shown that they are not serving the Constitution. They're serving the will and and the survival of their political party. Now, I disagree with it when it happens with Democrats, and I definitely disagree with it in the form that it's happening right now, because this goes beyond testifying and moving forward a narrative that helps your party get reelected. This is coming forward and literally, uh, um, in some cases, lying under oath to advance a narrative so that not the party or your partisan agenda gets is protected and promoted, but one man. And this is not a uh, a monarchy. This is not a form of government where we all serve one man. Actually, all of them serve us, the people, and they have gotten this thing completely screwed up and twisted. And my fear in this, beyond the constitutionality of precedents that they're setting, my fear is that when the tables turn and the opposing party gets power, that pendulum is going to swing far to the left. And you're going to see some of these same tactics and behaviors happen to the point where the party drifts further to the far reaches of the left or right fringes. And there's going to be less and less people operating in the center in common sense and in duty to the country above their own political survival.
I agree with you, and that's going to lead us into a lot of the topics today. Um, um, we're in trouble as a country, and you've kind of laid out why we are, and I wanted to make that plain because sometimes you just gotta make it plain that we are in trouble as a country, and just the testimony of the attorney general is just one more line that has been crossed in many lines, as you noted. It's others who are also disrespectful, and I wonder. I don't want to be naive about it because we haven't been online in a while and everything, and I'm not naive about it. But where do we go from here, Brandon? We've
You,
fallen so far, and I have some thoughts about
yeah,
that too. But I want to hear from you first.
and I know you were saying it was disrespectful. It goes to the point where not only is it disrespectful uh, in how they're operating on the fringes of ethics. It's unethical. They're operating on the fringes of morality because they're moral, and it's operating in the if it can be proven uh, in the realm of impeachment of their offices from their offices, right? Because the only requirement for impeachment is high crimes and misdemeanors, and you line under oath, you hiding or tampering with evidence, all of that comes into that realm of impeachment, but also it shows that we have a constitutional crisis here because there's collusion across the departments. Now, where do we go from here? You're seeing across the nation people motivated to be active, get engaged, speak out. There's a lot of energy happening or bubbling up from the communities across the country. I believe we're going to see that energy translate into the midterm elections, just like we've seen them in the previous special elections, where, in Tennessee, a super ruby red congressional district swung by 13 points in the direction of the Democratic candidate there. You saw in Texas in a special election for state senate, a district that Donald Trump won by 17.1% swung 30 points, allowing the Democrat to not just squeak by a victory, but win handedly. So I believe that what they're doing, how they're operating on the fringes of morality and ethics and wiping their butts with our Constitution is going to motivate people to go out in ways that they haven't, and new coalitions form to determine what government we have on the other side of November 3rd, 2026.
You know, I agree with you, and I'm glad you cited those swings in those elections. I also want to mention, because y'all, we did come up with a list of things we wanted to talk about today. It's the city of Georgetown, South Carolina, where I live. Um, the flip of our city, and for full disclosure, folks, I'm chair of the Georgetown County Democratic Party. So I did play a part in the
The best
election.
chair in the state of South Carolina. Thank you for your service, man.
Thank you, yeah. I did not pay him to say that, so thank you very much. Um, it's tied to national politics also. I really think people are starting to wake up, and they're tired. People are tired of suffering, and it played out because in Georgetown we had folks who lost a lot of jobs, and just last week my heart, and I know your hearts go out to the 125 folks who, once again, the packaging company closed in Georgetown last week, and it's on the paper mill campus, and we were hoping that that would hold out, and they closed that down. Um, but it's a reflection of what's happening nationally. And you would not think in the South, Georgetown is a rural port city, that you would see a flip like that. But I think people are angry, and it was in one instance where they came out and they voted and they flipped the city. There were a number of things happening, but I think we need to have that discussion, or note that the what is happening nationally is impacting local races also, not just statewide races, but these local races, because I think people are starting to figure out we got to clean house local, state, and federal levels, because these folks are marching to that same tune when it comes to the Republicans. Um, and I think that's also playing a huge part of what we're seeing also.
Yeah.
We
And
are joined. Go
we
ahead,
got it.
Brandon. Then we'll make a
Uh,
note of who just joined us.
no, go ahead, because he came in looking expensive, didn't
Yes, he did. He's got this look going on. Hello, Jamar Brown.
Well, God is good. That's all I can say.
We got
Hey,
about
y'all.
40 more minutes left. I think you need to say more than that, but go ahead.
Oh, well, I have a lot to say, but I want to jump into the conversation. But hey, y'all, hey, everybody. I'm excited that the show is back. I know we had a hiatus because, we've all had lots going on in our lives and trying to save the world and democracy.
Yes.
However, I'm glad to be back. So I'm going to jump right on in where y'all going.
We are all glad to be back. We went from Pam Bondi to flipping seats in the elections, and that's where you came in. Would love to have your thoughts because we know you are, I believe, advising someone that many of us have a great deal of respect for in Texas. But if you could just, share your thoughts with me with what's going on in these national and state elections.
Yeah, well, I think the thing that we have to recognize that's going into this cycle is there is a sense of buyer's remorse going on right now. We're watching all across the country where Democrats are flipping seats. We just flipped a seat in Texas in a red district. The seat that Taylor Remick just won used to be Wendy Davis's seat before she redistricted and ran for governor and the whole jazz. And so actually for the Democrats to win that seat back after about a decade was important. There was an African-American woman who was elected to the state senate in Iowa. There was another seat in Iowa that flipped. I mean, and so we're flipping places where Donald Trump won, and he won on a message of pretending that he would secure our country, targeting migrants and immigrants, claiming that he would lower costs, and everything opposite has happened. And so we're seeing that happen across the board in these elections. And it's important for us to make sure that we keep that up. But it's also important that the Democrats that are winning and that are being elected to various offices, whether it's governor or state house or state senate, that they actually keep up with the messaging that we talked about, right? We're talking about making people's lives better. We're talking about affordability. We're talking about access to healthcare. We're talking about access to food when we saw Donald Trump and the Republican Congress strike funding toward Medicaid and SNAP and other programs. And so for me, it's about making sure that we can flip everywhere across the country, but it is also about making sure that when we do flip Congress, that Congress will actually do its job. Because if we want to fix the immigration issues that we have in our country, it's not just the president, it's also the Congress. And we've seen that this Congress has absolved, quite frankly, in many cases, their oversight responsibility to the executive branch. The point of three branches is for them to coexist, but also to hold each other accountable. And we've seen Congress absolve itself, quite frankly, of that. What do you do when Congress absolves itself of responsibility? You find new members of Congress. And so that's what we have to do. And we're targeting different places. I saw the DCCC just put South Carolina on the map, South Carolina 1st Congressional District. So hopefully some national resources will come into those of you who live in Charleston and Beaufort and other parts of the Low Country, right? And so people are starting to galvanize attention, and Democrats are starting to invest places where, quite frankly, had been ignored, for a number of years. And so I'm excited about it, but I also recognize that we have hard work to do. And then just to touch on Pam Bondi, you can throw the whole administration away. We never expected that this administration was coming in to actually help people. It was always about power for themselves and for a few. And Pam Bondi was just the representation of that, right? Where she's protecting predators, quite frankly. And the biggest one is sitting in 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue. But she was hired by him to protect him. And if you're the attorney general, you're the top official at the Department of Justice. You're not the president's lawyer. You're the country's lawyer. And the fact that she went before the Judiciary Committee to only defend the president and those in the administration and with no concern for the American people is disappointing, but not surprising. So those are my quick thoughts.
And you did very well. I really think fundamentally there are people in this administration that are just broken. We are beyond politics. It is political in that we are facing midterm elections, but in the bigger picture, we are beyond politics because this is a moral moment. It really truly is. As individuals, we have to make a decision of what kind of country we want to live in, and what kind of country will we live in the future. And those are real questions that we have to answer as individuals that impact the household, that impact the community, that impact the country. We are in a moral moment. And I see, Brandon, you're shaking your head. Any thoughts?
I have several thoughts, but first I want to make sure that the audience realize that we have a regular joining us on CNN. Brother Brown, since we last spoke, has been a regular commentator on CNN and CNN Global, if I got that correct. All right. So not only is he talking about domestic issues, but he's tying it into the national and international conversation. So I just wanted to plug that real quick since he wasn't going to toot his own horn. Um, but yeah, I want to go back a little bit to Georgetown and how do you get a city like Georgetown where every Democrat, with the exception of one that has run in the last 8 years, had lost up until this last election because it's a season of unprecedented hurt, like people who thought that they were insulated from the hurts and the ills and the collateral damage caused by poor leadership and poor governance, um, now are feeling it in real ways.
Mm-hmm.
When you have a city that uses their authority to double the citizens' electric rates, when you have a elected officials that advocate for the closing of industry so that they can build condos, when you have people who work against the best interest of the people and for their own profits, then you start seeing situations like we saw in Georgetown, especially with that another industry closing their doors. People who just saying, I got a good job, I'm going to keep my head down, I want to go to work and make sure my kids go to school so I can make this car payment and my rent and all that other good stuff. I'm not worried about politics. Well, this shows you that if you're not worried about politics, politics will always worry about you. Now,
Mm-hmm.
former state senator Robert Ford used to always say the number one job of an elected official is make the lives of the people they're served better than when they first got elected. That is what the people are now calling for because they need someone to save them. I just hope that they realize that the saving that they need is in their own hands. The last thing I'll say, because Jamar brought up a great point that the DCCC is now eyeing our South Carolina Congressional District 1 down there in the Low Country. It stretches from Berkeley, Dorchester, and Charleston all the way over to Beaufort County. Now, this district swung a couple of years ago under Joe Cunningham, who pretty much squeaked out a victory by less than 1,200 votes. It was redistricted to make it a safe red district. They gave all the competitive parts of that district over to Jim Clyburn's CD6 district. Now, there was a lot of controversy in that. We won't go into that right now. But when you see a district that is supposed to be safe for Republicans now on the target list for Democrats to flip, that lets you know that the condition of the people is so dire that they're willing to try something that they never tried before. Now, over there, you have Matt DeFord. He's running for Congress. You know, I encourage everyone to check out Matt. He just did a town hall and he had one with 1,200 people that showed up one time. This recent one had a packed crowd. Folks who are showing up. I talked to his campaign manager, and she's talking to just as many Republicans as Democrats who are showing up to listen to this man. And he is unapologetically running as a Democrat in this race. That shows you that there is will and motivation for something new to take charge of this country.
I think this is the time if you're going to run and run as a Democrat, now is the time to run and be unabashedly for the people. That's what people are looking at. We could get into the issues, and we will in future shows. We really need to talk about the issues and why people are running. But I, as a county chair, have been encouraging folks. Now is the time to run for some of the reasons already cited. But people are waking up. Are they waking up? Some waking up as fast as I would like to see them wake up? No, but they are waking up, and it's by November. It's going to be a huge wave because when people start hurting and they recognize where the suffering and hurt is coming from, in particular, let's call it for what it is. So if y'all didn't know, Maryland's going to be one. I'm going to try to call it out as much as I can. This current Trump administration, those in proximity to this Trump administration, those who are supporting this administration are the problems right now. And I say administration because, quite frankly, the Republican Party is not operating as a party right now. People keep saying, why doesn't Congress do this? Why doesn't Congress do that? Where they're doing exactly what they want to do because they support what's happening. They're not going to do what we want them to do as the people and follow the Constitution because they're all getting what they want. And unfortunately, it is impacting the quality of our life. It is impacting our future. So if you want to run and change what is happening now and change for the future, now is the time to run. And I see just by Jamar's head tilt that he wants to say something.
Well, I think that what we're seeing now in our politics, as I like to call it, is people are looking for real leadership, real and authentic leadership at this point. We have been dealing with the Donald Trump and MAGA. And even if you go before Donald Trump, even it was the Tea Party movement, right? Even before Donald Trump came along. And so we've been dealing with this since at least 2008, even if not before. And we've seen this cannibalization, if you want to call it that, of the Republican Party to serve the will of one person. And I think eventually you get tired of the hatred, the racism, the targeting of people of color, the targeting of lower income people, middle class people. You get tired of it. And the Republicans are not operating as a party, they operate as a cult. Because when I said earlier that Congress absolved its responsibility, Donald Trump has done whatever he wants to do. And this Congress has said and done absolutely nothing about it. It took them a year to pass the Epstein Files bill. They went along with him in July to say that we're going to cut billions of dollars from healthcare and food assistance and nutrition programs to fund tax breaks for the Elon Musk of the world, right? That most of the people that voted for them will not see the benefits of the policies that they're passing, or the benefits of why thousands of federal workers were cut at the very beginning of this administration. And so when we talk about leadership, we're talking about authentic leadership that goes back to what you're saying, Marilyn, is it's centered on the people. Don't run because Donald Trump's in office. Run because you're going to make a difference, right? Because we've seen what happens when you just elect somebody just for the sake of electing them, right? And that has happened on both sides. But right now we're talking about the Republicans. And so at the end of the day, if you're running for office, it is about, I'm going to give you some free messaging. It is about the economy. It is about affordability. It is about making sure that people can pay their basic bills and they can live. They can pay their mortgage and their rent. They can pay for food. They can pay for their health care. They can pay for gas to get down the road to go to work. Republicans are always preaching about people going back in their office. Well, if you can't afford the gas, how can you go to work? And so at the end of the day, it is about those kitchen table issues. And so it is about having the town halls. It is about knocking on doors. It is about building community. Look, and everybody's talking right now about digital. I'm having a lot of conversations with candidates about digital. There is a use for digital, but we cannot allow digital engagement to replace the real authentic relationships, because at the end of the day, many of the people who voted for Donald Trump believed, even if it wasn't true, they believed that he was going to look out for them. And he has shown them at every turn he has not. And so we've got to get back to that as a party. And we used to be the party of economics. We used to be the party of the middle class. And so I'm excited, quite frankly, to see that as a party, we are beginning to move back in that direction of meeting people's basic needs and building community across the board. The last thing I'll say, it will take different types of candidates, because what I'm seeing this cycle, there's this question about electability. It's happening in Texas. It's happening all over this place. And it's interesting that we only talk about electability when people of color and women run for higher office, right? When they run for U.S. Senate, they run for governor, even president of the United States. We never talked about electability when we've been electing white men all these decades. We need to be open to different types of candidates. And actually, we've got to do a better job, all of us, to make sure that we are electing not our friends, we're electing the best candidate. And we're also seeing right now is, I tell people all the time, look, I'm not going home with these people. I'm not going to dinner with these people. They're not your Valentine. You're electing leaders. And so we've got to ask the questions, right? We've got to have the hard, difficult conversations, but it is also up to the candidates to be receptive and to listen to what people need, because at the hands of Donald Trump and his allies, people are really hurting.
We have to be bold. If you're going to run for office, be bold about why you're running for office. Be bold about the issues as you cited. People are hurting. Even myself, I don't have health care right now because it's just too expensive. It went up, so I can't afford it. And Brandon cited it in the city of Georgetown. Our utility rates went up, in particular energy, more than 50% in the last 4 years. And they just went up again because the previous administration did not hide the fact that they were going to vote every year for the next 3 to 4 years to raise the energy rates by double digits. And now we're feeling that. So they passed that last year and now it came again. And people are like, what happened on top of what we were already paying? They went up again. There's no relief. So you have to find relief as an individual or your household. And my decision was I had to let healthcare go, right? Just to keep the lights on, because you just can't afford it anymore. So if you can't be bold about it, as voters, we're looking for those candidates who are going to be bold about addressing these affordability issues, these daily issues that we have to make real decisions about. So y'all need to be these candidates. I hope y'all listening today because we're going to tell y'all as much as we can what y'all need to do.
And Marilyn, if I can add, hey yo, I'm sorry. When you come home, you know everybody. So, so two things, because I 100% agree with everything I was saying, especially when it comes to the economic impact that this administration has had on everyday people. And I remember back when we were on the Jamar and I were on the campaign trail for President Obama and in that 2010 midterm election, and we were talking about the middle class. We were talking about the middle class all the way up until Joe Biden ran in 2020. The conversation was about what is he going to do for the middle class. Well, in less than 2 years of this administration, we've seen a gutting of the middle class. Folks who were once secure in their middle class life because of their jobs, particularly minorities and women of color, double minority, hundreds of thousands of them lost their federal jobs that placed them in the middle class. And then at the local level, you're seeing things like what happened in Georgetown, where not only are you losing your job because the industry is leaving and getting shut down, but now your cost of living is skyrocketing and you have to figure out where you have to move to get another job and to be able to afford to live. That is systematically driving out people from their homes, from the places where they wanted to raise their children, and now they're seeking places that they can afford to live and have a job that allows them to live. In I'll land this in saying what Jamar was saying about us having a different type of candidate and having a different measure for electability, we have to stop measuring a candidate's electability based on only the amount of money that they can raise, because that shows that they have a good network to raise money. That does not show us that they have the leadership qualities and capability to lead us out of the rut that we're in currently. One of those candidates that I want to talk about, and everybody knows where I stand with this United States Senate race in South Carolina, Brandon Brown, in the first government shutdown, when we had federal employees asking folks and going to pantries, asking for groceries and toiletry items, he provided over 22,000 pounds of food and toiletry items directly for federal employees at our prisons in South Carolina, not counting the over 1,200 families that he serviced. That's the type of leadership people are looking for right now and can't find. On top of someone having a strong position in policy, they want to see if you can come out here and help me today so I can make it to tomorrow.
Agreed. Agreed. I mean, it's we have to be real for the right now. We have to be real for the midterm elections, but we have to be real because as a country, we have an entire administration ignoring the Constitution and openly ignoring the rulings by judges. They're breaking laws that has fundamentally changed this country. I think one of the reasons people are starting to wake up, they're waking up to the fact that I have to play an active part in what this country will look like in the future. And more of us need to wake up to that. And one of the things you can do is get registered to vote, get knowledgeable about the candidates running, and to vote. But in the meantime, and I'm throwing this out to you, to both of y'all, this is bigger than the midterm elections, right? This country has fundamentally changed. I don't think, by and large, the majority of the country yet have wrapped their heads around it. I think they know, but it's hard to wrap your head around it and to accept that. And you have to accept it so that you can step into it and either run as a candidate, vote, but even fundamentally ask yourself the questions, what are we going to replace this with? Or what are we going to take that works and make it more solidified, or introduce new laws? Just any of your thoughts about that?
It's still raining.
So I'll say, and I'll let Jamar speak here, so I'm not dominating the conversation. I remember when President Obama was giving a speech and people started booing, and he said, "Don't boo, vote." In this last 2 years, I can't tell you how many people I know, and I just had a conversation with another friend who's doing all the work so he can move to Ghana. Folks are leaving the country because of the condition of our government. They're running away from America to places that they can feel like they have a better chance of a better life. That is the opposite of what we believe America was about. And in terms of that migration away from the continent, I'm telling people, don't run, vote, stay put, use your power, your civic power, and speak to your neighbors. And all of us know a handful of people that have not voted in years. If we want to uh, uh, have a better tomorrow, it's not about us leaving the continent. It's about us standing firm and standing together to make it happen for ourselves today.
Well, I think the thing that we have to recognize about the current condition, both the economic condition, but also the legal condition, quite frankly, that we're in this country is by design. This didn't just happen. It is, and it is about a party. It is about candidates offering messaging to win elections. I know that there are a lot of people that didn't vote in maybe the 2024 election, right? For a variety of reasons why they may or may not have voted. At the end of the day, we have to recognize that elections is not just about voting for one candidate or another. It's actually a contest for power. And our democracy was set up that the people will decide who is in power. And so, how do we recalibrate people's minds around not elections being voting for one politician or another, or in some people's cases, the same type of politician, right, etc., and getting no result? It's about what is our agenda as a people? How are we going to show up to elect people who are us, who look like us? And then how are we going to hold them accountable, right, at the end of the day? So, for example, we're going to have a different spin in this election because right now the Senate is debating the SAVE Act, right, where you're going to have to prove your citizenship in order to vote. Now, as y'all know, across the country, you can't get most IDs not being a citizen. You can't vote not being a citizen. And most states now, almost 40 of them have passed voter ID laws, right? Where you would have to take some form of ID in to go and vote anyway. So on top of the voter laws that exist that already discriminate against people, now you're adding another layer about proving that. The other piece that is happening with this administration is also they want to nationalize elections, that the federal government would run the elections. Right, that is a different ball game than your respective, state election commission or your local election commission, right? Where you get your voter card, right? You take your voter card and your ID. You know your local precinct. You probably know the poll worker, right? Because they go to your church or you worked with them before, or you went to school with them, right? And when you have the federal government running the elections, it's not going to be your neighbor at the polling location. It's going to probably be somebody, official lawyer or police or something to that effect. And they're actually using these tactics now to intimidate people like all of us from participating and voting in elections, because they understand not only would they not win in this coming election, however, they realize they've got to change the game to get the power that they want. You have a president of the United States that wants to be Vladimir Putin. He wants to be like him. He said it throughout his campaign. He told y'all, right? At the end of the day. And so we're asking people to also participate in an election, or to participate in a process that is supposed to be their voice to decide the agenda and to decide power. But the very people that are in office right now are actually passing even more restrictions that get you there, right? So when you look at a daunting economic condition, right? All the things y'all just listed, right? People are struggling to keep their homes. People have to decide, do I keep my health care? Do I pay for my prescription? Do I put gas in my car, right? Do I take a vacation? Whatever it is. On top of an administration that's also saying, I don't want you to go vote. Don't go vote, right? And then so that's when you have to have a Democratic Party that is strategic and organized. That is when you have to have, as you said, Marilyn, bold candidates who know the issues, who speak to the issues that people are facing, who can speak to the plight of people. And 3, be able to take all those resources and really put them in an organized way to do that. So I would be encouraging all state parties right now, and other organizations, right, such as the NAACP, the Urban League, and some other organizations, to be thinking about, how do we think of voter protection in this moment? Because if our process is for people to show up in elections, where we have a dictator in the White House who's trying to tell you don't go in so many words, or that we're going to be in control of everything, we're going to have a lot of voter protection to really be able to protect people, both physically but also legally, when they show up to vote, because people are going to experience issues. That is the objective, right? They want to break the system that says you have a voice. And so when we don't show up, we're actually giving them permission to break that. And so it's up to candidates, it's up to the Democratic Party, it's up to even nonpartisan groups, right, that support communities and that support people of color, to be thinking of, 1, yes, people need to show up, but 2, how do we protect people when they do show up? So that they're not intimidated by poll workers, they're not intimidated by lawyers, they're not intimidated by militarization and police, because we've seen, I live in Washington, D.C., I walk out of my apartment building every day and see a National Guards person who's not even from here. And 9 times out of 10, they're just walking around. And the point is not about protecting people. The point is that Donald Trump sent National Guards into places he wants to control. And so when you have all of those issues going on, these are the things that we have to be strategic about. And this is why we've been saying here, and I'm sure many people have heard around, that elections matter. They do indeed matter, because if you give the wrong people the hands and the wheels and the keys to power, this is what happens.
Speaking of you walking out and seeing the National Guard and protecting folks, ICE, it was announced last week that ICE is opening a administrative office in Columbia, and folks did come out and protest. It's not only waiting until November, we have to do things now. And that's I say that knowing that there's been this thread of 92%, we just go sit back and wait. That's a discussion. Maybe we'll get to it in our last 10 minutes. But going back to ICE and protecting people, Brandon, we lost you for a minute. I don't know if you heard Jamar or not. And I kind of actually lost my thought just that quick, y'all. So y'all help me out and just jump in and say whatever you need to say.
It's all right.
Yeah, I know. It's been a day. It's been a day. But I don't know. I'm a little concerned with everything that you said, Jamar, which was very much on point, that there's still folks who don't get it. And there are many layers to that also. I think some folks are looking for a reason to go back to a norm or their comfort level, and they're focusing on the election, which there should be focused on election. But as I said earlier, this is bigger than politics. It's a moral thing. There is a lot that's going to happen between now and then, in the sense of, yes, they're trying to prevent people from voting, suppression of the votes, etc. That probably show up in November. We know it's happening, but we're going to see the attempt to put ICE at polling places. We're going to try to see the attempt to pass the SAFE. But in the meantime, you have this move to, I think, have 34 more detention centers.
Mm-hmm.
And let's be honest, at this point, they're concentration camps. And what people need to understand, concentration camps is because they have a concentration of people in one area. That's where they're concentration camps. People are dying there already. There are things that are happening that are beyond politics, that are moral things that I think people are still not wrapping their heads around, that whoever thought in our lifetimes that
I think many people are comfortable because people thought people thought we were past this, and people didn't think that this could be the norm. And I think that at least from my perspective, in the last election, or presidential election, let me say, in the last presidential election, there was a lot of intentional misinformation and disinformation on platforms with resources that were targeted to our communities, right? Because the very same people that voted for Donald Trump, that said, we're done with the Democrats. Some of it's on the Democratic Party. There's some things we missed. But some of it is some of the misinformation and disinformation. And what you're seeing now is an administration who sold you a message on affordability and I'm going to keep the country safe. I don't understand how locking up U.S. citizens keeps us safe. Right, at the end of the day, right? Because Maryland, let's be honest, the people who are getting pulled off the street, they're citizens like us.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, they're human. I started where they're human beings.
Right. Well, yes. The number one, yes, they're human beings, and number two, they're U.S. citizens like us. Whether they're here, whatever their status is, right? The fact that we're just taking people off the street, pulling people out of churches, pulling people out of schools, pulling mothers out of their cars, and separating them from their children. All of it is wrong. And so I think there's a political issue to get past all of these pieces, but there is a question in my mind of character.
Mm-hmm.
In that I don't think that character was on the ballot in the way that Kamala Harris was putting it on the ballot. But I think that now you've got to start looking at, yes, where do you stand on all these issues? But at the end of the day, what is your character? Donald Trump has actually shown us his character his entire life. I mean, let's go back to the 70s. Let's go back to the 80s when he wouldn't rent or sell to Black families in New York. To the 90s with the Central Five. He's shown us for decades, not just a political agenda. He's shown us who he is.
Yeah.
And the fact that people voted for that then puts a question in my mind in society of, are people okay with this?
And we have to think about this on an international level because other countries are moving away from America, actively moving away from us. They're looking at us, and for them, it's not just Donald Trump. It's the millions who voted for him or the millions who tolerated those who voted for him. And they're looking at this. And I saw
and it's the millions that still, and that if he was on the ballot again, that will still vote for him again.
Exactly. Yeah. So now there's these broken relationships that are impacting us right now. And this speaks to economics. It speaks to education because they're moving away from us. And so this long-term impact, we have yet to even see that. We know it. We know it's coming. But has a video, I don't know if I showed it with you two, the gentleman who's being interviewed, speak in the next 12 to 15 years, we're going to live in a dystopian society because of the brokenness of this administration, but also the brokenness of America. And it does speak to character, Jamar. That is the correct word to say. Now is the time that we have to make decisions as individuals. What is the character? What is your personal character to be a part of the solution to this? And Brandon, I heard you wanted to say something.
So what I wanted to say was, I think that it is, so I'm trying to get my thoughts together because so many things we could say on this. When it comes to what's happening in America, it is not isolated to America. If this Obama Leaders program has taught me anything in conversations with leaders from around the globe, is that Donald Trump is there was a Donald Trump in the UK. There's a Donald Trump over in Greece. There's a Donald Trump just across Europe. There's many of them. And the movement is being tested around the globe and then brought on the ground here into real policy and actions. Even inside of the U.S. territories, over in the Virgin Islands, one of our Obama leaders, she lives in the Virgin Islands. She was sharing with us just this last week about how the Virgin Islands lives 5 years ahead of the mainland because what they're experiencing now, we will ultimately experience 5 years later. They've been under high surveillance and the pressure that we're seeing now with ICE across in our towns, whether it's border states or not. They've been under that type of pressure for years now, to the point where everybody walks around with their passport because anyone can get snatched up, and they just call them immigration by immigration. And they don't have, unlike us, they don't have the ability to choose their leadership. They cannot vote in our elections and decide who the next president is going to be. Their member of Congress cannot vote on legislation that will impact the island. So literally, you have a colony of folks over in the Virgin Islands that is being dictated by our government, and they have no say in it whatsoever. And they've been going through this type of strong-handed immigration policies that we're seeing in our streets today. So we have to be mindful that this is not an isolated occurrence on the mainland of America, but we can be the testing ground for how citizens can turn the tables.
I think that was also noted in the halftime show of the Super Bowl when it came to Puerto Rico. Um, the lack of voice in the government and how it treats you, and in particular when they were on Bad Bunny was on the poles because they literally could not get electricity. Their grid after the major hurricane, I believe it was Maria, that went through. The government actually just punished them because we forget that that was during Trump's first term, um, and they didn't have a voice in fighting back against that. America has a history that we have to contend with and remember, but it's also how do we move forward, not in forgetting the memory, the history, because that's part of the problem. People have been sold the American mythology and not the American history, and that ends up leading to propaganda. And that's something we are having to deal with now in these decisions with who's going to lead our government, and also allow the Trump to come in and exploit and grift. And that's literally what they're doing. They're a grifting administration. Um, and I don't know how he sees this ending up. It's never ended up well for most dictators. But we'll see what happens. Jamar.
Yeah, I mean, I think that I like what you just said about we've been sold the mythology, and not even just American mythology, even around the world. I mean, we see these conflicts happening, right? You look at Russia trying to invade Ukraine. You look at the Israeli Gaza conflict. Like you start looking at the conflicts that are happening around the world and how some of that's being reflected even in our own country. That's happening, and actually, I don't know if y'all remember, but Donald Trump said during the 2024 campaign, we will fight the enemies within. He said that multiple times at his rallies to multiple people in red MAGA hats cheering him on. And what I believe now on the other side of this, he meant was we're going after anybody who will try to stand in the way of our authoritarian agenda, right? That Donald Trump, you've got to remember that all of this comes from Donald Trump wanting to be a dictator. Now, the laws of our country, right? The Constitution of our country is not written for a dictator, right? Which is why, as you said earlier, Marilyn, he doesn't care what the courts say. And if he doesn't care what the courts say, he'll try, if there's a judicial opening, he'll just stack the court. Then it gives him permission to ignore the ruling of the court, right? Because he stacked the person there. And so when you think about, or when you have ICE that is shooting people dead cold in the street, right? that these aren't even people they were trying to detain. These are people who have a right as citizens, as people in our country. They have a right to observe. They have a right to protest. Protesting is a constitutionally protected right, especially if those protesters are not causing physical harm to those that they are protesting, whether it's the individuals or the systems or the institutions, that they are protesting, right? We saw Don Lemon and Georgia Ford and journalists, right? We've lived in a country where we've had freedom of press, right? That's supposed to be sharing the news and the information with the people, and you're seeing journalists being tackled and arrested, right? In this country. And so Donald Trump does have a war with the people happening, and his campaign was an active effort to pit us against each other, right? That people were led to believe that immigrants and migrants were taking their jobs. People are led to believe that we don't need DEI, right? That we don't need to break down some of the racial bias that existed in our institutions and our systems. But people forget that DEI was actually started to help white women. Because women were not moving up in government and in corporations and in healthcare. And that work has expanded over the board to look at other marginalized communities, right? But there was an active war to do that. So who hurts when you have DEI bans? Who hurts when these multinational corporations make a decision to end DEI programs? It's Black and brown people and women of all races, right? That actually hurt, because these are people who now are not matriculating in systems. These are people who are not being represented. And so, the targeting of Black history and teaching Black history in schools, right? The targeting of the LGBTQ plus community, the targeting of cuts to Medicaid, the targeting of cuts to SNAP, now the targeting of the election system, right? What happens when the FBI is ordered to go raid a county election office in one of the Blackest counties in the country? That is targeted, right? And so Donald Trump has, like I said, he's shown his character, or lack thereof. And he showed us during that campaign, it was about making America great. To Donald Trump was about making himself and his friends rich on the backs of you. But he convinced them with a message about them and convinced them that the enemy isn't overseas. The enemy's right down the street. And what is our character as humans in this country that believe that actually my neighbor 2 doors down is the enemy versus what's happening in Washington, D.C. at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue or any part of the world?
And if I can, we keep talking about the Trump administration. I think we need to be very intentional about the wording. It's the Trump cabal. And for those out there who don't know what a cabal is, CABAL, it is a corrupt government. Ultimately, look it up. I think that's what we should refer to this group as, for what they are, a cabal and not an administration, because they couldn't administrate themselves out of a wet paper bag to be effective in terms of how a government functions. But they can, just like a child may not know how to build uh, a castle out of sand and make it beautiful, but they know how to tear it down. And that's what these folks have been able to do, go in and systematically tear this thing down. And the last thing I'll say, because it's starting to get louder here, you know, um, we're in a fight, uh, and this fight is about the future versus the past. And I think we can look to our past of ways that we've overcome before and update those tactics and strategies so we can overcome in the current situation we're in.
Yeah, because I think to your point earlier, Marilyn and Brandon, I think I like that you used a cabal, but I think ultimately at the end of the day, this isn't just an administration that comes into office for 4 years. Their goal is to have, I won't even say decades long, I'll say generational impact. Even from his first administration, when you look at the shape of the Supreme Court, the goal was to change the court, the highest court in the land, for the next generation. What happened after they did that? They went back and flipped Roe versus Wade, right? They actually gave the president immunity for clear crimes that he has committed, right? He clearly was found guilty in the court of law by a jury of Americans, right? The potential now gutting of the Voting Rights Act, right? And so when you start to think about what has already happened since even his first administration, right, in terms of the presidential term, it really does speak to the generational impact that they're trying to have. And that's why I tell people all the time, elections isn't about picking a friend or a Valentine. Elections is about power. And that's what Donald Trump and his allies and his friends see. It's about how do we hold power for the next 30 to 50 years, even if I'm not in office. And that's what they're doing with these policies and changing the courts and those sort of things. And so people have to start looking at elections as it's not about tomorrow, next week, next month. It's actually about what do I care about this country in the next generation.
I agree with you on that, Jamar. And that's why I am all for bold candidates. Just we need boldness right now. There's a whole list of issues I want to see people be bold on that I love to list next month because we've run out of time. But we also need to have these discussions because people are not really talking about them. They talk about it in terms and not to knock them affordability. They're broad terms, right? But there's specific issues. And I'm actually very proud of Black mayors who've done some things, Black mayors who've done some things as mayors. There are very specific issues that are now people should be seriously thinking about. And they had the foresight. As you say, you're voting for power. You're voting for what the future's going to be. And they had the foresight to start making some of those things happen. Quick thoughts, y'all, so we could wrap up the show. We said 1 hour, but any quick thoughts before we go? Hey, Jamal Craig, y'all, friend Jamal Craig. Go, Maryland. Hey, Jamal, good to see you. Thanks for hopping on and joining us. All right. But Brandon, last thoughts.
Yep, my last thoughts. I'm thinking about our dear brother Abe Jenkins in this moment. Abe, everyone knows, left us transition in 2022. His words still ring in my ear. That it's not about us old folks, and now one of them, I'm 40 years old. It's about the next generation. And we have to continue to look for the talent in our youth, cultivate it, and allow them to rise as high as they possibly can, because that is how you do generational organizing and set up a community for generational progress. It is not in us, those over 35. It is in the ones that are coming up behind it.
Very good. Thank you, Brandon. If you have to hop, feel free. And then Jamar, your last thoughts.
I feel like I kind of said mine in the last remarks. I think, like I said, it's a competition for power, and what we want for the next generation, and how do we cultivate the next generation in that, right? And how do we have these conversations? And so I'm glad to be back. I'm glad I hope that we get back to this being a discussion space for people, an education space, even in some cases for people. Also as well. And it's so exciting to bring back the gathering place. I missed us.
I did. I missed this too. We had some folks asking us, the politics talks are gathering place, and we just had to do it, folks. We just said, let's do it. Because if we don't do it, it's going to keep getting away from us. So we just decided to hop on a day. Before you got on, Jamal, I was telling Brandon, StreamYard has upgraded a number of this stuff.
I know.
Wonderful upgrades. No clue now. I'm like learning as we're going. Okay, so we're going to have to be basic today.
Yes,
but
right.
Yeah, it's got a lot of fancy stuff now. And just wanted to, let everybody know that. Thank you for staying with us today. Just wanted a couple announcements here. Let's see if this will open up. This is coming up, Emancipation Day Readathon in Georgetown. February 25th, 1863 is the day that Union soldiers arrived in Georgetown County, South Carolina, and went plantation by plantation, say the Emancipation Proclamation is now officially law and you are emancipated. So we started, the Gullah Geechee Chamber of Commerce started about 3 years ago, an annual readathon. And this year is featuring Raptors in the Ricelands by our Gullah Geechee elder, Ron Days. He might not appreciate me calling him an elder, but he is an elder. Wise. That's from the point of being wise, y'all. If you want to be a volunteer, please feel free and join us with that. And also, Oh, see, that was a new move, by the way. That was an upgrade, me doing that. Next week, we will be joined by a former ATF Assistant Director, Rich Marianos. He's a former senior federal law enforcement official with decades of experience investigating illicit tobacco trafficking and organized retail crime. Y'all, vaping and smoke shop related crimes are really becoming a problem within our communities. So he's going to come on and talk about those issues and what we can do as citizens regarding those issues. And of course, y'all, learn has Jamar said, please take the time and learn. We also have coming up this weekend, and I will be there. Let me see if I can get that. If I could get that one up here, but we have coming up next week. Okay, let me see if I can get that one here. The Gullah Geechee Community Day in Conway, South Carolina. This is brought to you by the Gullah Institute, the Joiner Institute for Gullah and African Diaspora Studies of Coastal Carolina University. Every year, love it, y'all. We take over downtown Conway. There's various lectures, vendors, educational, entertainment. Gullah Geechee Community Day, downtown Conway, this Saturday, February 21st, 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. So come on out for that one. And I think that's all I have, Jamar. Any announcements from you on your behalf that we need to know?
No, the only announcement I have, I know folks are watching probably from all over the country, but there are many primaries coming up this spring across the country. So I know we talk about voting in November. But I know, like, for example, the Texas primary is March 3rd. The South Carolina primary is coming up soon. So also be looking at Democratic candidates and who you want to vote for in the primaries.
Very good. Thank you, Jamar. And I think that's an excellent point to end it. We want to thank everybody for joining us after a couple of years. So we are all a little, got to get back into our groove. You will see us. Actually, this Wednesday, we will repeat the show. So Wednesdays at 4:00, we will be repeating the show. It will not be live, but next month on the third Sunday, we'll be back again live. And let's do some politics talks. Thank you, everybody.
Okay.
Glad to be back. Jamar, good to see you.
See you, friends. Take care, everybody.
Talk to you later. Bye.